Making some comments. I think that if you watched the selectmen's meeting on Monday night, I thought we made some.
Yeah, I can scooch here.
Oh, right there. I thought that we made a lot of progress. I think that we gave some direction to Dora and Whittier for what we're looking for in the presentation to the MSBA for January 4th. I think that there's a lot of work for the committee left, and I don't want you to feel that we're at, by any stretch at the ready to fold our tent and say that we're ready for town meeting. We're not. We're not there yet. But I will tell you that from my point of view, when we were sitting at the MSBA meeting on last Wednesday, that Terry Kwan made a point, and I sat there thinking, now I should have thought of that myself, but I didn't. And I'm going to email her and say that I'm going to follow through on her suggestion. Seniors, and I am in that group, we get out and vote. We always get out and vote. And I have made arrangements with the Council on Aging for a February meeting, and I'm going to make the presentation to the seniors at the Council on Aging. I've also, I happen to be chairman of the board of the Housing Authority, and I have made arrangements at the plantation to speak to the residents at the plantation to give them a heads up on what we're trying to do, what our aim is, why Pine Grove needs to be renovated, and for seeking their support. For actually, presenting what we have and so that they can understand and make a judgment. And hopefully they'll make a judgment in our case, a positive judgment. To me, one of the telling lines that I'm going to use is that if you look at the construction costs are going up every year, and if we were not to pass this in May, and construction costs went up, and we tried to do it just 2 years after, well, we're talking about going up from $35 to $37 million, just using the figures that are out there, to $37 million. But the big difference is the state is willing to kick in $17.5 million now. In 2 years, we get to pay the whole $37 million. I'd rather pay $17.5 now. It's a much better deal than what we'll have. So that's where I'm going to be selling from. But, when you get out, you got to talk to people. As Judy was saying earlier, I'm sorry,
Jane.
but Jane, it's
for
too
my
early.
fiancé
You can't, people aren't going to remember until May. But if you start thinking about it, all right? I'm going to see what I can do to arrange to get some signs out, support Pine Grove School in the community. And if you see a lot of signs out, support it, maybe we can drum up enough support. We got the override passed last May, and I think we can do it again. But it'll take a lot of work. But we've got to put the work in. At the selectmen's meeting Monday night, as I said to Brad Monday night, I understand the 28 million, as far as I'm concerned, the option A is ridiculous. I mean, these ventilators are, I don't even want to consider it. And I'm not considering option C either. But I'd like to be able to work at, with the rest of you for the next 2 months to try to get the figure from where it is now down closer to 30. If we can do that, I think we'll have a better shot. But we have to look at what we're doing and make choices. I don't want to, have disgusting tiles in the corridor just to save a few bucks. But so we've got to do it right. But I'm not going. But I'm don't want to waste $1 million on site work if I could use that $1 million somewhere else. That type of thing. We all have to talk about that. We all have to look at the project and put that together. I know that Brad has said that he can improve the approach to the school, but he can't fix it. And the improvement that looks like, and listening to Christine earlier, that, yeah, we want to separate the cars from the buses and make it safer for the kids. But, you know, again, we only have so many dollars, so we have to work with that. So I'll sit down and shut up, and we'll go on.
Okay. The agenda, everyone have the agenda? Okay. So second item on the agenda is to update on the CM selection. Some of you walked in at the tail end of our meeting, previous meeting we just had. And we had the CM subcommittee meet this evening. We deliberated, and we have chosen a CM, and that is W.T. Rich Construction Company has been chosen by the committee. So we're gonna move forward and award them a contract with the pre-construction services starting probably right around the first of the year, ASAP. So we'll let them know that they've been awarded the project, and we'll make some phone calls to the other contractors and thank them very much for submitting on our project. So the third item on the agenda, anyone have any questions before I move on? The third item is to review the PSR, which is in front of us. We'll go over the slides. So we want to talk about the summary of the preferred schematic submittal. We're going to go over the evaluation of the existing conditions again. We'll look at the final evaluation of the alternatives that they're going to provide when we put together the presentation, and the preferred solution. And then we're going to talk about local actions and approvals, the last slide. And then I'll go in a little bit. We need to set our meetings for January, and then we could talk about the community outreach after that. The next one is the schedule. Do you want me to do this update again? I did a very good job the other night. So the dashed line is where we are today. You can see that the preliminary design, the PDP, we've talked about in the last meeting we were held on. We did submit it on time. We submitted it on the 2nd of December. We had a meeting with the MSBA on the 13th.
Last Wednesday, yeah.
Last Wednesday. And now we're in that FSA, well, we met with the FSA meeting, that was the 13th. Now we're in the preferred schematic report period, which is that blue area. And that's where we are today, and we're looking to submit the PSR on January 4th. So tonight's meeting, we're gonna move forward and show you all the alternatives, we're gonna vote on it tonight so that we can meet. We have a special meeting that's being held on Wednesday with the selectmen to get their vote, because we need both votes along with the school committee, which is gonna follow up on January 4th. And that's it. Unless you have any other questions? Get
Okay.
right into the meat. Let's go.
Talk faster.
Yeah, sorry. I looked at it, I already talked about that. Yeah, very good. Yep.
Thought about bringing cookies, said it would slow us down.
Thank you. You're the best.
So in the spirit of timeliness and time efficiency, we've, we're moving quickly through the PSR. I've got the table of contents up here. I don't know if we have a copy of the PDP. It won't be quite as big as the PDP, which was about 2.5 inches thick. And as I think you should know by now, the PSR is really the evaluation of the alternatives we established in the PDP. And given the nature of this project as an LSR project, those options were just degrees of intervention, of renovation, and we really customized the middle option to be what you want. And to Joe's earlier point, we'll continue to work on exactly the contours of that option and schematic design. But this milestone is really to let the MSBA, it's more designed around larger projects where you're choosing between a whole new building or renovating and maybe 2 or 3 different sites. And so then there's really big choices about direction the district wants to go. In this case, we know the site, we know the building. It's just the exact contours of the renovation. So we'll go through these quickly in the rest of the slideshow, but there's an introduction, summary of any updates to existing conditions, final evaluation of the alternatives, which is a summary of the work of this committee, and then a description of the preferred solution. And then finally, local actions and approvals, and that's what Andrea was just talking about. We need a vote from this committee, we need a vote from the selectmen, we'll need a vote from the Triton school committee.
Just to make one comment, I spoke a year ago with a guy from Ipswich, and he told me about how they were going at their renovation for the Winthrop School. And he said that they had 4 proposals that they were looking at. They were going to build a brand-new building on-site. They were going to build a brand-new building off-site. They were going to renovate the Winthrop School, and then they were going to renovate the Winthrop School and merge it with the Doyon School. So they had 4 different proposals to evaluate and look at all of the costs. I'm glad that we're just doing renovation here.
And they still haven't had a resolution, it's still.
No, they're having
Every
a
option.
difficult time with it, right. Exactly. Very good point. Yes, thank you.
Right. So, evaluation of existing conditions. We have had an environmental site assessment done. That's a kind of a standard review of records. Chris helped out with that when our engineer came out. So we'll include that in the PSR, nothing of alarm. And we've been continuing with the development on the site since we approved the ASR to include site as part of the project. Got our civil engineer on board. We have the surveyor, should be flagging the wetlands this week. And
Hopefully it doesn't snow.
yeah. Or melts.
Yeah.
When will that be taking place? Over the holiday break?
Yeah, I'll coordinate with you, Chris. You're supposed to get back to me.
Thank you.
The flagging's pretty quick. Once the flagging's done, we're
Yeah,
halfway.
but that's usually, there's somebody in the bushes.
Yeah, right. So, we'll update that on the site. I also want to show you 2 options to the site development that we've developed. I think you know the site as it is. This is the site as it looks like on MassGIS. Part of the reason for the survey is to get things a little more accurately. But there's a big area of wetlands to the south, and not on the property, but to the east, and a perennial stream that runs through around the corner. But wetlands have a 100-foot buffer, and perennial streams have a 200-foot riverfront area. Both of those are jurisdictional areas where we have to start talking to Concom. We can encroach in them to some extent, depending on what you want to do, but it's a negotiation, and there's a lot of regulations to be complied with. The easiest thing would be to stay out of those buffers. The first option is a more minimal option. It tries to address some of the basic principles of safety, such as separating car and bus traffic, providing a pathway for students to enter and exit cars and buses without crossing traffic for the other. So kind of widened the paved area, and this one, as you can see, this is the 100-foot buffer of the wetland. So this one definitely requires discussions with Concom if it was pursued.
And it eliminates the basketball court.
And it currently eliminates the basketball court. We'd have to see how we can replicate that elsewhere. But and it's very gestural, but right now we have replicated the same number of parking spaces, created a one-way entrance and exit, so that cars can line up. We extend the sidewalks. Cars can line up here. Students could jump right out the right side of the car, so they don't have to cross through the car traffic. They would stop. The car queue would stop a little bit in front of the entrance. And would be a monitoring position right out here, and then the cars would be strongly encouraged, demanded to exit this way, and thus the buses is just enough space, if it's repaved, to queue up all the buses in a reconfigured north end of the parking lot, of the school-owned controlled portion of the parking. So there's a little crosswalk shown here, and that's kind of the line where cars shouldn't cross, only buses. So that gets you to the separation, has even pedestrian access out to the street without crossing through the traffic, If anything, it's better to have students walk in front of a bus with a professional driver than in front of cars. So that does a pretty good job of managing the pedestrian car, bus, safety issues. Like I said, the issues are the encroachment into the wetlands buffer, and as Christine mentioned, the loss of the current basketball courts, which are right here.
Which are owned by the town, by the way, just so people know.
Right.
Now, what isn't owned by the town, just where the pedestrian walkway is on that northbound exit road, or north-facing exit road, is that, do we have enough room to do that there, as far as,
To have a second curb cut?
well, they have the, yes, they have the curb cut and the pedestrian walkway.
At this preliminary level, we believe so, but that's why we're doing a survey.
But this,
There's enough separation for the curb cut.
this still brings all of the children in that main front entrance.
Right.
All of the car kids and all of the bus kids all coming in the same area. Okay.
Right, so you
It
can-
doesn't address secondary access to the gym that was mentioned once.
Correct.
Right, and the
that's
building is really designed with,
What?
the side is the entrance, so the drop-off point is not aligned with the building in an
Right.
ideal circumstance.
Right.
It's close, and you can certainly have a monitor out in this plaza in front of the all-purpose room, and they would have good visual control of the site.
Better.
Better,
Not
not perfect.
Right. Better.
Right, you never, in most schools, in fact, and you guys been to other schools too, right? Unit design point here for enrollment is 415 students. If you go and you have, 50 or 60 parent drop-offs or pickup, pickups in the afternoons, the more challenging because everybody wants to queue up and, be ready to go. And it can
I actually looked at, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I looked at those numbers, I checked them out last week. It's heavier in the morning for
No kidding.
drop-off, and it's light in the afternoon, because I have regulars that do bus duty in our lower lot. So in the morning, it runs anywhere from 35 to 40 drop-offs. In the afternoon, the pickups are roughly about 15 to 20.
Wow.
Wow.
Except for
checked
those of
with-
us who don't bother to send notes in.
That happens occasionally.
I wouldn't know
So
who
that
that
you could
is,
take the
but-
bus, you could take the bus in or take the bus home.
Yep. Yep.
So those kids are taking the buses home, they're just getting dropped off.
Right, the ones coming
Because
in
they
the
can't get to
morning,
bus early.
the kids wake up late, or parents are running late, but it's heavier in the morning than it is in the afternoon. And I checked with my nurse and my guidance counselor, who do lower lot duty several times a week.
Okay.
Also, there's after-school activities.
Right, that's the other thing we
Too,
talked about,
which-
there's lots of after-school activities, so
Oh.
it's
That
gonna make
could
it
lighten
lighter
up.
in the afternoon, because several kids are staying after school.
In either instance, right, it's just, there's only so much room there, and, cars want to get queued up, and it's always a challenge. And so this does exactly what John says, it provides that type of separation that we're looking for. Is it going to completely resolve the problem? No. Unless you had a couple of, different ways in and out of the site, everything's somewhat congested there. So as Joe pointed out earlier, right, it improves it. It doesn't resolve it, but it's certainly a lot better and less confusing than what you currently have.
Right.
So that's, kind of the first scheme that we've come up with. And all of this has to now, because remember I keep saying this, right? It looks like, wow, they've got it all figured out, but we haven't really started designing yet. Right? These are ideas, so now we're gonna have to put, pencil to paper and start to figure out if all of these ideas can in fact work. And that's the next step.
Is there room in this one for the buses to pass the cars there? Because one of the issues today is the buses and the cars tend to mingle, and then it backs out onto a main street. Is there room here where if the cars are pulled over for a drop-off, the buses can actually pass them to get into the bus section?
So I think the idea there would be that everybody would get queued up, and the buses, when they're ready to release, we'd hold the cars right there,
Stop them,
right? The buses would discharge,
Okay.
and then the parents can have their free for all trying to get out, right? But the idea there is the buses are, and can I say that for a second?
Yeah, you're gonna block it off so that.
The
cars-
kids actually could be walking around. We could set it up so that there's a walkway around so that they don't have to make that cross there. So they get in there, and then when it's all ready to go, right, somebody says, okay, stop, right? The buses all discharge, and then the rest of the parents that are
Right.
there can go.
Right, so what I'm picturing is, there are some cars that get here a little bit early, there are 3 of them that are parked. As a bus is coming in, can it
Oh,
then
can they-
pass
Oh,
the?
oh, yeah,
yeah.
yes.
We can pass the cars on the
Yeah.
left, there's enough room there for that?
Yeah, we'll make,
Okay.
yeah, that,
Yeah, in both cases, these are sized for a
Okay.
bus to pass
you'd
across.
have to have that for,
Even if-
fire access.
Even if
right.
car doors are opening in the on the left side?
Yeah, the standard there is gonna be 24 feet.
Right.
And also do some retraining of parents of
Right, don't open
behavior
the
next
door.
door. Well, it's true, I mean,
It's
I know.
worked really well so far.
It is, it is. Yep.
And then.
I hear stories about Newport, they built that beautiful new school, half the
Those
kids
are
are driven there because they have to pay for buses, and it's one of those, you have to get there half an hour to 45 minutes before school lets out to get a spot in line. I'm like, that seems like a waste of time to me, but they all do it.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess it's a thing. But they've all been trained, so we can train people.
What's the option two?
Yes, thank you. So we have a second option, and we're showing you both options in the spirit of the preferred schematic report. We'd like some direction about what to pursue. This one is a larger intervention in terms of scope and better, I think, or we think, in terms of result, but as Brad and Joe have said, doesn't solve everything completely. You're still fundamentally stuck with a pinch point in the overall site and the orientation of the building and its entrance. But what this does is has that same queuing area for the cars up front, crosswalk marked to get pedestrian access out to the street. But then creates a paved loop around the garden area. You could leave that garden in place. This would be sufficient to park all the buses, and then they would enter through the back lobby, which is heavily glazed, is connected to the outside, is not currently used as a main entrance, but would function just as well as one. That has the added benefit, as I think Christine mentioned, after hours or in the weekends, then this is an accessible drive that no longer needs to be used by buses, could be used by cars, whether they are bringing someone to watch a soccer game or an event in the gym. We can have a little sidewalk, it's very short to that second door there, which is currently, you have to cross a field to get to it, so it's not really truly accessible right now.
So, John, one of the other ones that we briefly looked at was the reverse of that. We had the parent drop-off around the garden, and then the buses were lined up. Is that
Yes.
out of the equation now?
I wouldn't say it's out of the equation.
I'm just curious as to why it was flipped.
I think we flipped it internally because we feel, it's still a pinch point to come
Yeah.
around the north end. So again, you'd rather have professionals driving
Yeah.
in a semi-supervised area and coming around this corner. It just seems, also talking to our civil engineers, traffic engineer, that could be a real accident generator to have parents rushing out of there and other parents rushing in.
Right.
and it's
I was just curious
blind
as to your
corner.
thinking. So, can I say what I like about this? Right now, everyone enters the school through the front doors, and it tends to become a bottleneck in the morning, because I'm out there in the lobby or I'm out in the front. And, having several of the kids come through the front doors and the kids riding the bus come through another door, I think would alleviate that.
And for dismissal too.
And for dismissal as well, that's right.
Right.
We would not have to dismiss out through the AP room anymore.
Right. And I also like how the buses, because the buses arrive, say at the end of the day, they arrive before the end of the day, hopefully, all goes well. And then they can be waiting over there, so that if people had to leave the parking lots, it's always, you have to wait. So like if we have a meeting over
Right,
at central
interesting.
office at 3, it's like I have to wait for all the buses to go,
Or you
or I
have
have
to
to
go
park
half
all
hour
the way
earlier.
at the end. Right. So I can see how that would be convenient as well, where we're not breaking any laws with the buses and driving by them, or asking permission to do it.
And they do take our license plate numbers down and report them to the police.
I do see another benefit and option too that doesn't exist now, similar to the ability to bring in people into the gymnasium without going through the whole school.
Yes.
Right, it's a much safer option.
It's evacuating the building while the school is in session for any type of emergency. Right now, during the winter months, it's impossible to put our students or anybody in that section of the building to have a quick egress there.
That's a good point.
There's no.
I got a crazy question.
There's no wetlands violation with Upton too.
Yes, exactly.
That's correct.
So this one is less impactful. on the
That's a
wetlands.
good, that's a really good thing.
What was the
Is there
question?
any way we
There's
could,
no-
is there
I
any way
just
we
said
could
this
add a secondary
wetlands.
exit?
No wetlands.
Oh,
See where that parking lot is up there, where it says 221? Is that the town-owned property?
This is the town-owned property. We're not, it's not always clear on our.
No.
contracts. We're gonna,
Is there any way to
Ah.
get back out
Yeah.
an easement of some sort to get a secondary road out?
Yeah.
Because then you could just route the buses in and out through the back of the school.
I saw that, but I don't think 221 is a town-owned property, though, 221,
So
right?
it's huge, would they be
Well,
willing, would we?
the
is there-
houses all
easement.
along, I think you'd have to buy
Take an
one of those
easement?
lots and demolish the house in order to get out there.
Even
I
if you
think
get
it's
an
landlocked.
easement
Other houses there?
to put a driveway
yeah,
out,
see, this
there's a
is
space there to get out,
221.
back out to,
'Cause where's the big piece of, where's the old
1A.
farm that the town owns?
Yeah, Brad
That's-
Street.
Is that Brad Street? Is that farther up?
I think it is,
If 221 is Brad Street, the town already owns it.
right.
So,
I was just
No,
gonna
that's
say,
not Brad Street.
no,
No.
it's not Brad Street?
it is.
Brad Street's the next one up, I believe.
If you go back one, I
The
believe
green
you can
one,
see the
green part.
community garden
Yeah, the
in
wet
the
one.
satellite view.
Yeah, could you go back a
Oh,
slide?
even further, yeah.
I think this is the
Where's
community
Brad
garden
Street?
up in here. I think it's up in this area.
Right.
Is where the community garden is.
So it's the other side of
If
the.
How do
that's
they get
Brad,
in
if
there?
that's
If
Brad
that's a
Street,
community
There's
gardens, that's
there's a
Brad
lane.
if that's
Street.
Brad
It's the one with
Street,
the two
the town
columns
owns
up
that.
and
How
down.
about
Is
punch,
that-
punch?
Is that a
Boom.
roadway?
all you need is a
Just
one
from
lane to make the traffic
I
go
don't know,
out.
that's partial
It's out
private,
only
partial
just
public.
during
Got
school
it.
time.
There you go.
Yeah, I looked at that too when I was looking at the plans, but I said, I don't think we own that. There is a building, looks like at 1A there, but you can squeeze something to, just go up a little bit on that, on the PowerPoint, yeah, right in there. If you could put a road, just a driveway,
Yeah,
and connect it, then that eliminates.
that's Brad Street.
No,
That
it's
could be
not
a
Brad
really
Street.
nice little option. Plus for access to services, everything else.
Yeah.
It's
One
good to
way-
have
one
one,
way out,
it's
that's
good
all.
to, it's good to have a secondary access in case of emergency. You know, maybe something that's not quite as obvious to the bad guys. I hate to go there, but, you know.
There's no doubt, I think that it would be great, and we'll confirm, you know, who actually owns 221, if the town owns 221. It might be an option, I mean, it's money,
Or if there's an easement, because it looks like,
but
I don't know.
12
That
foot
could be.
pavement,
Yeah, I didn't
one
think
way
it
out.
is.
Well, the
But
thing
the
is,
back
you know,
portion.
even if it's not a now thing, maybe it's something to keep in the back of our
Right.
minds if there's a parking lot there in a couple of years, since I know that site work isn't included as part of the MSBA stuff. Maybe it's one of those, in 3 years, you know, as this situation kind of falls out, we see if we like it, if it turns out it's necessary. If that is indeed Brad Street, punch through,
It's not Brad.
boom.
Brad Street has a conservation restriction on it too, so I think that might be difficult to punch through it.
we'll confirm the ownership,
Yeah.
and then,
But
you
that-
know, we can,
221 is not Brad Street. I
Yeah.
think it's
No.
to the north of there.
I
Yeah,
don't think it,
because
I don't remember
Brad
that being
Street
town-owned.
has the farm
Right.
and the barn on it.
But I
That
believe,
doesn't show
Joe,
there.
the town is considering purchasing the back portion of 221, right, for soccer fields, or that's a lot that we're thinking about?
I believe so.
So,
There needs to be access to those anyway, so it sounds like there's going to be an easement required anyway.
well, but I don't think we're talking about the access to Main Street. I think we're just talking about the back portion, but maybe that's something that
Maybe
could
that's
be
something to think about.
thrown into it, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I've seen some crazy lot lines here in Rowley. That would not be the craziest.
That's putting it mildly.
Seen what they did on Dodge? Holy cow.
And even if you get just
Look
an
at those
easement,
lots.
I mean, all you need is an easement,
Right,
Yeah.
right away.
yeah,
One way
that's
out.
right, yeah.
One
It'd be
way.
good for fire, safety and everything else.
And if you have a whole bunch of people there for soccer fields anyway, it wouldn't be a bad idea to put a secondary way in.
Right?
Golly, you create one way, do two-way, make
Yeah,
it
I
a
would take a look at
real,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
way in and
Yeah, no,
out.
we'll
Put the
confirm it, I
buses
think
in
we
that
can look
way.
at it, and I
Because
think
that
we
way
can
you
confirm with
remove the
town.
entire bus
Yep.
equation from all the parent equation. You have all the parents who are on their phones, the kids are screaming, whatever, the kindergartner doesn't want to get out. You've got the buses going an entirely separate way in and out. That would actually, I think, be a much safer option for everybody. A lot less stress on the poor bus
You might be able to expand that
drivers.
parking lot a little bit
And
too, and then put
administration.
the basketball court back in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, we
Take
project,
the
right?
additional parking, put it up in back, and then put the basketball court back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I do like too, just about how it is now, just how it is, not if we changed it, whatever, but thinking how it is, I think when we do fire drills and things, or if there was an actual emergency, getting out of that, the doors that kids would now be coming in, having it paved and whatnot, I think that's going to make it much better, because preschool actually exits out that door, and they're.
For fire drills.
It's for fire drills and things, right?
So
So
it's
like, just
kindergarten.
holding the kids, there's teachers having to grab them, because it's hard to walk. So I think in the end, having something like that there too would be really safer.
All right.
It
So-
also makes the garden a centerpiece, which I think is a really nice
Exactly.
statement about, very attached to the garden.
Yeah.
I think it makes a nice statement about the school and our priorities as well. Sorry to get all, fluffy on you.
So I take it from that option 2 is the preferred direction at this time, pending
Right.
cost.
for me.
and
Never know.
budgets.
How far are you gonna pursue these options? Because one of the first things at the selectmen's meeting was to do away with the site plan and something else to save $2 million off the total cost.
The windows.
Windows.
What would
Well,
you
we're
sell?
gonna kind of get to that here in another slide. And
Okay.
So
coming
we're
up.
going to come
Just
back to budget.
My personal opinion is I still think the site plan should be considered even if it's an option in or an option out, because, you're renovating the building, you're doing all this good work in here and you got no way to get to it. I think people are gonna look at that and say, hey, why didn't we take care of the front? I mean, I know it's $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, I still think it's a priority in the overall improvement of the school. Whether we look at windows or the
Flooring.
roof or whatever, we should really put that as an option so that we can see what the price is, and we're putting a contingency in this whole project. If we find that we don't use much of the contingency, maybe we can put, obviously we won't have $1 million, but we can put some money towards it, maybe do a phasing of it. Phase 1 would be the improvements you see here, and phase 2 might be the exit out to 221 or something, But we should not just drop it, this might just opinion. I think we'll be kicking ourselves later.
I agree.
Well, at this
Yeah.
point, we're not dropping anything.
No.
Except
I'd say our
for,
windows
except
are-
for,
I'd say our
except
windows
for
off the-
A or
that windows
option
should
A
be
and
off.
option C.
Okay.
That's the only thing
So
we're
just, we're
dropping.
going to come in the rest of this presentation is going to get into the budget a little bit, but as Brad, I think, said well at the selectmen's meeting, this is about a direction, or your metaphor is a
Right.
door number 2, B in this case. It's about choosing a direction, and then we get 3 months to work with you closely in January, February, and March to really work out the details and establish a real scope and a hard number. Because at the end of that, mid-March, we're going to have enough information to have a hard number so we can go to the town and the MSBA and get the full project fully funded,
Right.
which is still in advance of most of the design, just to be clear. But
Yep.
it has the advantage of defining the scope well enough so that you know what you're getting.
Yep.
So that's site. The next part of the PSR will be a summary of the evaluation of the alternatives. We really did this at the very end of PDP, so it'll be just capturing that very long meeting, or 2 meetings we had, going through the matrix and every possible option, and as they shook out into option A, B, and C, and explaining that, that is the matrix as it shook out, with the yellow highlighted areas being the option B choices. And as you know, we went through all these different categories of structure, architecture, plumbing, mechanical systems, fire protection, electrical technology, and hazmat. And for the purposes of the PSR, we've labeled them as a repair or code minimum option, that would be option A. An improved performance option, that would be option B. And then the path not chosen, option C, is options that were about superior performance. You want to start?
Sure, that was the good cop. Here comes the bad cop. So, again, option A, option B, option C, and this is what we presented to Board of Selectmen last night. Was it last night or 2 nights ago? 2 nights ago. It's all happening very fast. And everything that we presented at that point was based on the PDP. And, as even over the last couple of weeks after we were authorized to go and get a better understanding of what's going on with the site, and engaging the civil engineer, we were able to do that. We are also able to work through in more detail the estimate that the estimator had provided us, and made some comments back and forth to refine that to what we would be submitting in conjunction with the preferred schematic, the PSR report. It is pretty close to where we were before, but not exactly. It is a little bit higher on option B and option C, primarily associated with our better understanding of the site work. And just how this breaks down is the light blue, because we haven't gone through this diagram with this committee. The light blue area, okay, is the building cost, and we've, for all intents and purposes, the areas in the light blue are pretty much common to a large extent between all three options. There are some nuanced differences, and we talked a little bit about roof being a good example, where there is an upgrade that you would go and see going from option A to option B to option C. But in large part, as we've been discussing with you all along, this is a systems-driven project, and a large portion of the differentiation or differential in the cost is driven by the HVAC system. I won't go through that with you again because I know I've bored you ad nauseum. So, but the difference here is really just refinement there. And the site, the way it's defined right now, is in the kind of the light green area. We're calling those accessibility improvements. So the estimator has taken off an allowance of 8%, which is the MSBA site cap limit. And so that number right there is based on 8% of your total construction cost. So that's goes through option A, option B, and
That's the
option
light
C.
green.
The 1 million, the 1.3 million, and the 1.6 million.
So that's what we're getting state reimbursement for?
That would be a reimbursable amount up to that 8% cap. And we feel that number is probably pretty close. It's going to cover things like accessible walkways, accessible routes, if we have to put in a new accessible surface out on the playground to be code compliant. Those types of things. There's going to be work that's going to have to be done to facilitate utility construction, so they'll have to repair stuff that they break or modify. So that number is that's what that number is intended to cover. In the darker green, okay, what we've done is we've taken, the estimator has actually done a takeoff and put a preliminary cost associated with a certain square footage, which is generally consistent with those two schemes that John was discussing previously. And it takes into account, the asphalt, the curbs, the site lighting, the stormwater drainage that will necessarily need to be replaced or improved depending upon the discussion that we end up having with Concom and which option is pursued. So that's essentially, kind of a conceptual level estimate of what, those parking schemes might cost. Again, we have not put, the design piece of this together, but it's an attempt at trying to get close to that. And so what that does effectively is, it ended up, it worked out that the number on a dollars per square foot basis, which we represented to you before for option B at $312 a square foot, remains the same. But the $2.4 million, okay, that is the estimate for that site work package that we were talking about associated with the site circulation and parking, is incremental to that. So what we've done, and we would probably suggest to you, in line with trying to keep that in play, depending upon, where the pricing for this project comes in, is suggest that carrying that as an alternate. And, for right now, and it's a relatively easy alternate in terms of how it breaks out with respect to the contractors, subcontractors that would be involved. It's a, relatively limited scope from the design perspective in terms of the, design professionals that would be involved. There's not a ton of crossover. I don't want to say there's not a lot of work there, because there is, but the crossover isn't crazy. So it's a clean alternate, and we like clean alternates. And then, as we move forward, we'll try and look at where there may be opportunities for savings within, the dark blue area or the light blue area. Maybe, for example, you decide that you don't necessarily need to upgrade the roof as compared to option A, so there'll be a little savings there. Maybe you decide that you would rather not replace the windows in option B with a low E glazing versus just leaving what you have in place. So there'd be some savings there. So when we get into the next phase, into schematic design, we'll start looking at some of those and doing a little bit more diligence and understanding what the cost is on those. And then, that's we're in the information providing business. You guys are going to be in the decision-making business. And so you're going to have to make these value decisions as to, what you want to be able to include and exclude. That alternate is easy. A roof alternate is easy. Other types of alternates, when we start talking about can we kind of do a halvesy on the HVAC system? Not so much. It's a very different system between A and B, less different between B and C. But I think, everything we've heard so far is C is just, it's outside of where we're headed anyways.
I have a question about that 2.4 million.
Yep.
I have two questions. That's in addition to the 1.3,
Yes.
That's correct. So
and it's not reimbursable.
that's correct also, because the 1.3, if that's fully subscribed, which we, at
That's
the moment.
part of the 8%.
That's the 8%, so this would put you over, right? So that would not be a reimbursable item.
Am I mistaken, or was it 2.4, 1.2 on Monday night?
It was, and that was because, what I think I'd also mentioned is in the PDP estimate, there was a little commingling of what was going on. He had the 8% in option 1, and then in option A, and in option B and option C, they had done the full takeoff, but not included that, option A amount, that baseline amount for the things like accessibility, the things like, so it was excluded. And it was just because there were too many moving parts too fast for him to be able to pick up on. So as part of our review, when we had a little bit more time to dust it off and have a little bit more input from the civil engineers, we were able to reconcile that. So we still think, that 8% number, maybe it's not 8%, maybe it's 6%, or, we don't know because we haven't done that yet. Maybe we'll have some savings there, but you're going to use some of it and a good chunk of it. And this part here would be incremental. So up above, the 35.3 number represents dark blue, light blue, orange, and light green. Okay, the orange number is the soft cost, which we've talked about right now. We carry as a 25% multiplier for the soft costs associated with the project. And so that's where you are at the moment, okay, for your budget. And it works out to $300, $312 a square foot, which is right at the MSBA cap. So that's good, unless there's a specific excluded type item, like septic, which is in that number, you would be getting dollar for dollar. So that's pretty darn good. And then, we'll continue to, as the design evolves, to present to you, potential cost savings associated with those items, as I've said. But as I also said to the Board of Selectmen, everybody needs to be realistic here. Right? If you look at option B and you say, $35 million, that just is not going to be able to hunt here, and we're going to choose that, but we hope to get down to $28 million. That's not an exercise we should be going through, right? Because we're not going to get there. Just not going to happen. So let's not chase our tail on that. If you think that there's that what you want, okay, is what's being offered in option B, we will work with you. Okay, to get you to where we can get you the best value we can, but you're going to have to know that it's not going to get all the way down there. There's no free lunch on this stuff.
Do it
So-
once, do it right.
Pardon?
Do it once, do it right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's not opportunities for savings here, because there's also do it right, but if you can't get it passed,
Well, that's
right,
the thing.
you're not going to get anything.
Right.
So you've got to balance that, and that's your guys' job.
Right.
And we're going to give you the tools, but you're going to have to make the decision.
Right now, as I said Monday night, the 28 million is not an option. And we know that we're not going to get option B down to 28 million. But we can take a look at all of the parts of option B and make decisions and see what we can. And there, like you said, for the HVAC, that isn't an option. We're going to go with the package, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you just can't break it up. But there may be some things we want to take a look at. There may not. But we're all gonna sit and we're all gonna review option B, and we're gonna take a look at it and say, what do we do?
Right.
Well, it seems like if you're thinking about doing the $2.4 million in site work, then you're going way over 35 million.
37,
So-
yeah, it's
So if-
2.4
if the-
million
If the
plus.
goal is to come in at 35 million, it doesn't seem to me realistic to say we're gonna be able to do site work.
Or if you said, another way of putting it, Cliff, right, is if you said, you know, that's my number, and I want everything here, we're gonna have to value engineer, and I hate that term, as I will tell you a lot. That you're gonna have to find $2.4 million in this stuff right here to get that one right there. And still have it, whoops.
Actually, you'd have to get more because the 2.4 is not reimbursable and the stuff in
Right.
the blue is. So
That
you'd
is
actually have
very,
to
very
take a look.
correct,
Yeah.
Jane. You get a gold star for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you have to get
Still drinking
5
milk.
million
Yeah.
in savings
Yes.
under the
Yeah, it'd
blue.
have to be more,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
we'll call you Jane from now on.
That'd be great, thank you.
That's a good one. So, I mean, I just want, and I don't want to dwell on this any longer, but I do want you to really understand it, because it's key. It's absolutely key that you understand this, and I don't want to, you know, not have you understand it so that we come back the next time and we present it, and you guys say, wait a minute, that wasn't what I understood. So this is the time. Okay?
Could you explain again how this alternate thing works? So,
Sure.
in the spring, when we go to town meeting, would we be asking for 35.3 or 35.3 plus the 2.4?
Or could we have it as a separate item, vote on the 35.3 and vote on the 2.4?
Well, really, the output is either 18 or 20 to the town, is what we're talking about, because the
Right.
MSBA will pick up the other half. So when you look at it that way, it's not quite as scary.
Right. So we're gonna have to go through all
Because
of
that's the
this.
number that we really need to talk about. Yes, overall project cost is, 35.3 plus a possible 2.4, which would be kind of nice to get it all done at once, as long as you're digging stuff up, for Pete's sake. Just dig everything up and get it done, right? Don't prolong the pain.
Well, no, I think, it's been said
But
before,
it's either 18 or 20.
there's a real danger
Much more
that if the
palatable.
figure is high, that it might not pass town meeting.
True.
I mean, that's a real danger, and then we get
Could
nothing.
lose the whole thing.
So I
Could lose.
think,
But then at the,
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either, and at the end of the day, the building's gonna fall down and the town's gonna be responsible for the whole
Yep.
cost at some point.
Well, that people might not understand that, though.
But I think they need to hear that because, I've had conversations with the fire chief in the 8 years I've been here, and he's been close to shutting us down just because of the wiring. But he
Because
knows
the
that we're
caution closet, isn't it?
But also, if you give the voters an option of voting
seen it?
for the alternative, then
should
they
be.
might feel more of a commitment, saying, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to approve the 35, but on the alternate, yeah, that's a good idea. And they feel more of a personal involvement to it.
But do we
as
want the
opposed
town
to-
meeting to decide how we're gonna make this building work? I mean, it's this committee here that really has to say, this is what we're committed to, and we're gonna put the alternate in there, or we're not gonna put it in there, as opposed to giving
Yeah.
the town meeting that choice, because they may say, well, why did you do the roof or not do the windows? I mean, I think it's really our decision here to go forward with a number and a project, and listed as an alternate.
Yeah, I was
in
just
there.
thinking of a way of involving the town more, having them feel more personally involved in the decision-making rather
For a
than.
building this size, 20,000 doesn't seem, or 20 million doesn't seem bad, I gotta be honest. Maybe I'm just jaded
But-
by reading all the government stuff, but seriously, for a
Where it's
building this size.
clearly not reimbursable, it has to be a separate item voted separately.
Okay, that's fine.
That's.
As long as people don't vote to do the site work and nothing else. Wouldn't that be funny?
No.
We want a new parking lot and nothing else, guys.
I mean, many
Could,
people use
but-
this building
That'd be fun.
on the weekends and in the summer.
Yeah.
The community uses the building and the property.
So typically how the alternate process works, right, it's really more of a bidding tool. And so, in a normal situation, and I think Larry's, got a good idea here, but just before you get to that, typically what you would go out and you would say is, you vote on the project cost and your budget. And, you know, if your budget is $35.3 million, that's what you vote. And then bids come in and you see how they came in. And if you have headroom in there because bids came in low,
Yeah.
then you could go and, you know, go and exercise the option. This is a pretty big option, so, you know, the chances of bids coming in that low are probably pretty slim. What Larry, I think, is advocating, okay, is to go and kind of go and say, hey, you kind of get both, because from a bidding perspective, we'd still put it together the same way. But the likelihood of actually achieving it, if you carried it as two, you know, different articles, you could go and say, you know, if you get both of them, then you're going to get it. If you only get one of them, then maybe it happens if you have the headroom, okay, on bid day.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do think that you're giving people a little bit of a sense of buy-in opportunity, okay, by looking at it that way, and that's something you guys would have to figure out, you know, when you're putting your town information together.
Do you think it would help the psychology to have it like that? Looking at you guys, town officials, what do you think?
Well, we don't have to decide this tonight, but, I mean, the smaller the number, I think the better off we are. That's,
I just wanna, I know probably everyone realizes this, but I just wanna say it, is that the site work in my mind is not an issue of making it nicer or flow nicer, it's a safety issue.
Yes, ma'am.
We have students and their families that are pulling in, they're parking on the right-hand side of the driveway as you come in, they're having to cross through car and bus traffic, and then they're having to cross through the drop-off line to get over to the sidewalk in the morning. In my mind, I was afraid driving through there the very first time I dropped my son off of hitting someone, because there are people coming from all directions, you've got buses coming from all directions, you've got monitors standing out there. To me, as much as this is an okay position almost to put in an alternate, having gone through this with the stadium and understanding how the alternate process works, I feel like this is a huge safety issue for the school. When we were talking to parents in the very beginning of this process, I would say this was in the top 3 of things that they felt had to be fixed in the school, because they are afraid that there's going to be a tragedy.
And I certainly don't want that under my watch.
No.
Right.
So, you know, another way of looking at this too, right, but still under the alternate concept, is that this part, you know, the site alternate, if in fact everybody felt the same way you did, could be part of the base bid, and then you could look at, you know, all of these other things that you're trying to whittle down as add alternates, where you could go and say, the windows would be an add alternate if we have enough money. The roof upgrade would be a add alternate. You have to establish a priority for that up front, but it's doable. You know, it just changes, you know, your philosophical approach to what's more important, which is fine. You know, you guys are the owner, so.
And it strikes me that we've defaulted to having this as the alternate just because it's non-reimbursable, which I think psychologically is a hard pill to swallow. However, if we were to say, oh, well, the roof isn't, the septic right now isn't reimbursable, guys, are we gonna say we don't want new septic? Because I think that's a bad choice, I gotta be honest. Never mind, I'm not gonna go there. But just, is the only reason we're putting this as an alternate is because it's not reimbursable?
No. The only reason right now it's being carried as an alternate is just because it's over kind of the cost threshold that had been identified to us originally day one. And I think it was also in response to, you know, some of the things that we'd heard in terms of presentation approach with the Board of Selectmen. So, you know, we're not trying to go and, you know, raise or lower the value. It was just something that just the nature of how this kind of got involved in the process, it was latecomer, right, because we didn't know it was included, and so that's it. So we're not trying to go and make a decision. It doesn't really matter. It matters in terms of how much ultimately the town's portion they are going to pay, but it doesn't matter, okay, whether it's reimbursable or not as far as the bidding goes, because as Jane just said, you know, septic's going to be, you know, non-reimbursable, and there will be many components of this that will be non-reimbursable, and all those aren't going to be voted on individually by the town. So, you know, that's just how the process will work. You can carve them out, but you don't have to carve them out.
Right, what all that all the reimbursable, not reimbursable, we're gonna work with
on
Pink,
that,
once we
yeah.
get the estimates in March, the real estimates that are broken down in much more detail. We'll have an estimate from the construction manager as well as our estimators, so there'll be very detailed estimates. and then Pink is gonna lead the
We're
charge.
leading the charge on the 3011.
I'm running through this
We're-
two-page,
yeah.
very complex, if you saw the space summary, the 3011, it's another even more complex spreadsheet. And there's all these calculations, but what that will let us do is figure out what the actual, what they call the maximum facilities grant is. We'll go through all this many times to explain it, but the town is gonna have to authorize the full value of the project, and they give you the legal disclaimer in case the MSBA goes up in a bonfire. The town would be responsible for the whole project. That's not gonna happen, so as you go out in the public, you will wanna have both numbers in mind, what they're gonna see on the warrant article and on the ballot, that number, which is the total project cost, and then the actual estimated, and it is estimated, town share, and then the impact on the average tax holder. Because even with the approval by the MSBA and the town, that maximum facilities grant is a maximum, not a guarantee, and they'll have their lawyers explain that to you. And
They like to
make
say they're in the
Brian-
reimbursement business, not the funding business.
Right. So it will even go down a little bit from that maximum number, most likely, as things play out.
But I'll tell you, from what you just said, I totally disagree. I was involved with the stadium project, and there were 3 alternates offered. And the first alternate was to remove the press box. Second alternate was to put in a substandard cushion for the field. And I forget what the third alternate, I really don't care what it is. It turned out we lost the press box area, and they couldn't, the bidding was such that we couldn't afford it. But the town has to pay for those unreimbursed costs.
Yes.
And we're not going to be able to do it, as far as I can see, I wish Karen Summit were here, as an alternate, because we have to come up with that $2.4 million separate. We do have to fund the septic system separately, and we do have to come up with those dollars. We don't have it in the budget. We would have to fund that separately. That's not going to fly at all.
No, well, I guess maybe we're not explaining it right. See, you will have, your share of the overall facilities grant will include all of those items. They will just make, it will be kind of a proportion of that overall facilities grant, which is reimbursable, is not reimbursable. And some of those are not easily distinguishable, but are required, but MSBA just won't pay for them. And so, they're still gonna require that they be in the job, because, you can't just break it off sometimes. So they have to be in there, and you'll have to pay for them. The town won't have the opportunity to go and say, no, I'm only going to pay for this part because of the interrelationship. Just like, if you're over the $312 per square foot number, if it's $320, right, you can't break out the $8 and say, we're not, if the town didn't vote to approve that, how would that all kind of get parsed out? So it does work.
The mechanism is actually that a month of work is done, the contractor submits a requisition for the full value of that work done. That is processed by us and then approved by the town and paid by the town, and then you're reimbursed. You submit it to the MSBA for reimbursement. So on a month-by-month basis,
Right.
you'll be reimbursed, but
Right.
you're going to get the full bill.
Well, sometimes
first,
it
and then
comes
you're
to
gonna
us,
get
and
your money.
sometimes it goes to trade.
It's right.
That's true.
So maybe you can work that out.
Yeah.
But you're gonna get the full bill every month and then get reimbursed on that, on a monthly basis. So it's both mixed, as Brad's saying, and then split out in terms of calculation.
It's the commitment has to be in the full amount. On a cash flow basis, it doesn't work out that way because they're reimbursing. And so, just as John said, you'll be committing to, if option B was 35.3, that entire amount. Ultimately, you wouldn't be paying that because you'd be looking at paying just what your reimbursable, amount is, and then you would go and do your calculation on, average tax impact and everything based on that. But they do have to, as John said, if they went up in a bonfire, you would still have the obligation to hold the whole note. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah, right. No, I understand that part. I understand that.
Okay, so, any questions on this? All right. So, sure, I can go there. This is just a slide to give you, based on the different components, the relative value of option B as compared, and option C as compared to option A. So it just gives you a little bit of a flavor on, each one, what the value is, what the differential is. So, you can see, obviously, A is being baseline, B, it's a step up from that. And some of these, you look at, windows and curtain wall, you can see it's a very significant jump. But this is just within that particular category. So when we go and we look, and this is the same thing for, other, trades. But when we go and start to look at it overall as compared to the project cost value, you can start to see the relative importance of each one of these items. So, for example, we've been talking to you about how HVAC on this project happens to be the big dog, and you can see just based on the overall cost of it, it's pretty significant, and you can see the difference between B on the red, blue, being C being the red, B being the blue, and then that light gray color that you almost can't see there is being option A.
Sorry, I was supposed to fix that.
I know.
What was that
was
one
just a
above,
subject.
I'm just gonna fess up. I didn't-
HVAC, the second one above, that's quite a distance up.
Sorry.
Electrical system.
Electrical.
Electrical,
Yeah.
Electrical?
Yeah,
Yeah, right here.
because
Yeah.
remember, that's
The
a
sidewalks are big
That's
a generator, so that's new service
electrical.
from the street, that's all new distribution, it includes current and lights, we can.
And fire alarm.
And fire
Yeah.
alarm. So,
Right. And that's more sprinkler related.
And that's more of a code thing now, so we don't have a choice.
Right.
So it's
I mean,
hard to program.
within electrical, we could, nibble a little bit on that. We talked about lights with the selectmen, for example. But I think the point of this is that if you look at, say, floor finishes or ceiling finishes, if we did half the ceilings, it's a tiny little fraction, right? So
Right.
we should focus our attention on the large value,
Right, that's
high impact items.
where we're gonna get the bang for the buck. And you can also see, kind of the value, again, site work, again, overall as compared to some of the other areas, it's a big number also. And again, it's a value decision that you folks are gonna have to make. There's a couple, more of the trades there. And then finally, this is just to put it in, into the MSBA pricing format, on a dollars per square foot basis. Whoops, I keep pushing the wrong one. So this is the overall construction cost, not project cost. And you can see option B as compared to or as related to MSBA funding cap. It's very efficient. Obviously, this one is also very efficient because they're both under it. This one here, which nobody seems to be interested in for understandable reasons, you wouldn't be getting that. You'd be over the cap. And then this is just building proper, site work, and hazmat, and that is hazardous materials removal, asbestos primarily, and then also the accessibility site work number I was talking about previously. And this right now is the value of the alternate itself. Just raw construction, does not include soft cost markups and those types of things, just because of the way the MSBA sets up this particular chart.
Now, at this point, you're presenting option A, B, and C to the MSBA to have three options to present, and that we are looking at option B.
Right, I'm going to explain that it's the consensus of this committee that directed us to pursue option B. Describe what is in option B, subject to further clarification during schematic design.
We've gone through all that.
Right.
Right,
You're there. You're on 335 now.
which is Andrea and James.
Perfect.
It is? Oh, yeah, you're right, it is.
The final section of the PSR is formalities, including votes at this meeting.
We have a couple of things that we need in order to submit the PSR. We need to certify the meeting minutes of the school building committee, which we have, which means we have to sign them. They have to be executed for the MSBA to accept them. So we're gonna decide, I think it would be you, Joe, that has to sign them, I think,
I thought
or is it Cliff? I'm not sure.
you and Larry were reviewing the minutes.
Well,
I am the clerk, so that's probably,
Okay,
could be one
probably
thing the clerk does.
Okay.
I don't really know.
They've all been
Pass the
approved,
buck.
right? So this is just kind of a
It's like
perfunctory
a-
signature. I think it's
Yeah.
actually probably most
I
appropriate, Joe.
vote you
Yeah,
to be the scapegoat.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that.
I vote you to be the scapegoat.
School building committee presentation materials, we'll have that meeting on January 4th, that will follow this one.
All of that, I think, really means is that all of the presentation materials that we provided today
Here
would
will be presented
be
there.
included, essentially as an appendix.
Yep. And then the local actions and approval certificate form, which we have done that form already for the PDP, we just have all the signatures, the 3 committees. Would be the executive officer, and then we have the superintendent of schools and the chairman of the school committee have to sign that document. And
So
then,
that's been signed.
But
no,
this committee should
this is for
vote-
the PDP. We have to vote tonight on the PSR.
PSR.
The building committee has to vote first, then the selectman votes, and then the school committee votes. So tonight we have
So
to make a
tonight, we're
motion to
voting
vote
for the
for
building committee.
allowing us to submit,
Wednesday morning, we're going, the Board of Selectmen's
Yep.
going to meet to vote.
and then January 4th is the school committee. We're gonna follow up with the school committee, which is fine.
So to help frame your vote here, really what we're asking you to do, right, is there's 3 options that have been presented, just as they were in the PDP. And now we're asking for you to select the preferred option, whichever one that is, and to support us going forward and submitting the PSR with that option to the MSBA. That's really what we're looking for a vote from this committee, subsequently selectmen and school committee.
And you're taking that to the MSBA?
Right.
Well, not January 4th, because the school committee is voting that night.
No, we're actually submitting the PSR on the 4th, and then we're following up with the paperwork.
Oh.
We've been authorized. It's okay to do that with we've already got authorization.
Okay, does everybody understand? Anybody have a question?
January 4th is a MSBA deadline for submittals.
For submittals.
So that's why.
Right, so we're right on that.
Right on
We're
schedule.
right on schedule, and we're just gonna submit the paperwork out.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve your submittal of the 3 options with our recommendation that we are approving or are in favor of option B.
So,
Does everybody understand?
second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Everybody individually that you're in favor. I'd like you to record that everybody was in favor. Any opposed? Unanimous.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, one thing before we wrap up.
Joe,
We need
that
to
was
pick
fun.
our.
Joe hasn't had dinner yet.
I know, stuff my face. Other would be, I want to pass out real quickly is the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, an interpretation of what we can.
This is very important and so
Cannot
that we
do
have
as a
to follow.
committee for the community outreach.
Ethics.
Actually, I want to keep a copy for myself. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is take this as homework over the holiday break. And we want to be prepared at the next meeting to talk about how we're going to handle our outreach for community outreach. And who is going to chair that, and who's going to take the lead, and what we can do as a committee, and what we can't do as a committee. Patting Jane on the back. So let's just confirm that, I have it on my calendar, January 5th. It's a Thursday at 7 o'clock.
That's your proposed,
That's my proposed day.
Any conflicts? Any
Sorry, what date was that?
January 5th.
Thursday.
Thursday? Go back to Thursdays.
I really should start carrying a calendar, shouldn't I?
It's not on your phone?
No, on paper. Old school. I'm good.
So, everybody okay? You have to make them,
I haven't heard any.
Yeah, 2.4.
does that work for most? Okay, so we'll submit it, we'll send out the invite through the Google. calendar. And I think that was it. On my agenda, the other items are just that Joe, I need your signature on the additional services from Dornwood that we
Okay.
voted on at the select meeting.
The only comment I would add before we adjourn is that you don't look to one or two or three people to head up the attack for getting this proposal passed. I think we all should participate and that we all should contribute time and energy because it's going to take a lot of work.
Can we get matching T-shirts?
That would be nice.
What?
but I don't think so.
Oh, man.
Not in the budget.
Not in the budget.
I've got a Girl Scout troop who can
So-
make them for us.
We have two other things that we need to do. We need to approve the meeting minutes from the previous meeting,
Okay.
which I think we got all the comments back from Larry and Cliff by
I got it back
email.
from Cliff.
No.
Did I get him back from you, Larry? I got that Google
Yeah.
document.
I sent it in to you.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you inputted everything.
I don't know if they were noted. I'll have to go back and double check with that. That was on that Google document, right?
I think so.
Okay. And those should be on there.
You sent me the minutes and I redlined it and sent it back to you.
Pardon? No, I'm making myself a note. I'll share it with everyone.
Stop my nuts.
I'll-
You want to find that before I wink the vote?
I'll just confirm afterwards and I'll make those changes. I
Well,
don't
we
think I
really
have
can't, we really can't vote on it if
Yeah.
we don't know what the changes are. So maybe, Larry, can you go over them, or?
Let's see. I think on page 1, item 1, third line down, semicolon before however, comma after however. I think I made a couple of grammar changes, which I didn't record on this. Page 3, under the option 1, control level, room by room, small r, that's just to conform to your room by room, small r under option 3. Like I said, I think you picked up the other grammar changes, but those two, I think were just too invisible for you to pick up.
Okay.
Is that anything right there?
Yeah, it looks
Hmm?
like
Is that anything
Oh, no, this is, I use some sides. But I think there was nothing major or significant other than just minor grammar changes.
Okay.
Could you,
So can
could
we
you
make a
approve
motion?
those minutes with the changes as noted?
I just have a
Right.
question, because the building date, our date changed to meet, is it okay that it's in here as not today? Just so you don't have to circle back, do you know what I mean, it's like, next building committee meeting's December 20th, but we had to move it.
Oh, it changed.
I don't know if
yeah.
that has to change in these minutes too, or if it
Oh,
really
no,
We
matters.
can make a note on the,
Not really.
no.
No, 'cause we-
that's what was
yeah, that's
discussed
what
at the
was decided,
meeting.
yep.
Record is record.
Have a motion to approve the minutes with the changes?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes as changed with the notes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and the
Any
la-
opposed?
Okay, and the last motion, the last thing we'd like to discuss is additional services for Doran Whittier for the hazardous material inspections for a total of $55,280 to Universal Engineers Consultants. The scope of work included review of the reports, inspection of asbestos containing materials, bulk samples collected, inspection for the PCBs, don't ask me to spell that out, pronounce that. Inspection of the underground oil storage tanks, testing for mercury, radon, and mold, and reporting a final report. And Universal Engineers Consultants had the backups attached. It's $4,800 plus markup, so it's a total of $5,280.
$52.80.
$5,280. And it's within our budget.
Any questions?
We haven't talked about underground storage.
It was just a proof that we don't, they did a search to make sure there wasn't any
Oh, that we
underground.
don't have one?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically, we did a phase one.
Phase one assessment.
And then we had done, you know, all of the other environmental work, and we did this a long time ago, and we had talked about it, but we just, somehow, that never
It fell
got through.
Yeah.
The UST was the last thing that they came out for the
Yeah.
environmentalists.
Right.
I need a motion to approve the bill for $5,280.
So moved. I'll second it.
Any questions?
I have one question for you, just as, it's a procedure question, nothing about that. That was awesome.
We haven't voted to pass.
Oh, you haven't passed, well, no, it's not, I'll wait. I thought you did that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the bill for $5,280. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
So just on the procedural question, to have your approval related to the PSR, you know, formally memorialized and reflected in the minutes, don't you have to get those minutes, the minutes that are going to come out of tonight, approved, so that ultimately when they go into the book, right, you've got those signed that reflect this? I'm just asking.
Usually we submit the certified minutes afterwards, because in
It's
almost
after, yeah.
every project, the vote
They
to
fall
submit
behind.
Okay. I just-
happens
They
just
fell behind
before
in the
actual
PDP as
submit.
well.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we can have draft minutes.
Right. We'll do the
included
draft
in
for
the-
you
in
by
the
January
PDP
4th,
and-
but
and
we
noted
will-
as such.
Just so long, then that'll go along with that other.
It will show the votes and who's in
Okay,
attendance.
I just don't want to lose track of that.
Yep.
That's it.
Anything
Okay.
else?
I think we're adjourned. You have to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
Make-
motion.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
I'll take it if you don't want.